Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and I've got a little bit extra to look through this week as I'm going to first take a look at the month of July's weather forecast, the bigger events of the month, mainly outer planet stuff, and then also this week, July 4th through the 10th. We'll take a look at that too. And just real quick, some basics right at the beginning here. The Astrological Winds channel is on YouTube. If you have a YouTube account, become a follower, turn on your notifications, and you'll get a notice whenever it comes on. It's also available on multiple podcasts. You just have to look up Astrological Winds channel. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple iPodcasts, Reveal, amongst others. So just look that up. Or if you have an Instagram account, look up Astrological Winds channel on that and become a follower. And if you do, you get some bonus material too, because I post stuff during the week, not video or audio, but just some comments sometimes. So that's also a good thing to do. So that's the best way to get me if you need a reading or some other astrology service is my email, and that's mattHue823@gmail.com. mattHue823@gmail.com. Okay, just get that out of the way, and let's get into July. And really, there's, right away in July, actually today on the 4th, there's a pretty big event with Mars changing signs, but that's the key thing of this week too. So I'm going to bypass that and come back to that and on the weekly part in a little bit. So remember, I've been saying that, those 4 planets and bodies that are at the late 20 degrees of each of their signs, they're all, when a planet is hitting one of them, it's hitting all 4 of them, one after another, and that is Pluto and Saturn and Eris and Neptune, all in the late 20 degrees of their signs right now. And so this month is really interesting in light of the current situation going on in the world, where the economy, which had been doing well for quite a while, is really seemingly collapsing, or recession, or going into a recession, whatever you want to call that. So everybody's, life is having to adjust to a lot of these changes. Obviously, the inflationary part has been the first big part, but, I'm starting to hear, housing markets going down. Of course, the stock market has gone way down, things like that, and even maybe now tightening of some of the employment opportunities. So, Ceres is the asteroid that represents nurturing, getting what we need, our basic needs, and feeling safe in that sense. So like food and shelter and things like that. And Ceres is in Cancer right now, which is also the sign that's very similar to that. It's a mothering type of energy that wants to make sure that basic needs are being met. So it's very interesting that Ceres is now in that zone of Cancer, where those 4 outer planets this month are all going to make aspects to Ceres. So to me, that is just so fitting of what is going on economically, because it's like, it just exactly matches the situation of having to tighten our belts, so to speak, and adjust to a more frugal type situation on whatever level you're in. And what's interesting about that too is all 4 of those planets that are on those late degrees, Eris isn't quite there yet, but they're all retrograde, and they're all going to be retrograde for months. So what that means to me is that this, recession or downswing economically is going to go on all summer and into the autumn at least. And, so it's probably going to be the rest of this calendar year that we'll be dealing with this. So on the 10th, the first one is a quincunx of Saturn to Ceres, and this is a second hit of this one. Saturn quincunx, and remember Saturn is in Aquarius, and the quincunx is all about adjusting. So, and Saturn's about the restrictions that are coming to those resources. So it's like having, to take actions to make sure basically our basic needs are being met first, and not being able to now all of a sudden have like this disposable like money to spend on things that aren't basic. So it puts us like more into a frugal or thrifty or conservative mindset, like feeling those kind of restrictions, and just feeling like we need to get just more basic support. And even like on personal levels, even like just feeling like we need that, in our relationships and love and nurturing and things like that. And now on the 13th, we actually have a good aspect to one of those outer planets that may help in that, and that is a trine to Neptune, which is also retrograde, which really I think is going to bring the spirit of giving up between people, like where people are going to like kind of help each other out, be like charitable, that kind of thing. But I think on a more societal level, because you have to remember these outer planets are all having to do with societal and transpersonal type stuff that's greater than the individual, and we all get sucked along in it. Is that I think also that what may happen is like a lot of religious and social and justice type organizations are going to have to step in and help people out with resources too. So that's and then I think what really is the biggest trigger is on the 17th. Sirius is going to form a T-square opposite Pluto, retrograde at Capricorn, and both of them square Eris, which is stationing retrograde right at that time. So this can be like a very intense, I would not be surprised if like at around that time, like there is some other event, or it just keeps like the information just keeps getting worse about how much change to resources going on, and the availability of it, and the prices getting higher, and like really maybe forcing a lot of people to think they have to make like some very quick, even chaotic and upsetting changes that could cause a lot of grief inside, and just really wrestling with how to deal with the intensity of a quickly changing situation all of a sudden. Now, the open end of the T-square is Libra, which is interesting. What that's saying is the resolution is by forming partnerships with other people, and even other groups and things. And we have some other indicators of that too as being the way to do that. And even that Neptune trining the series really is indicating that. It's like like I said, even religious and social groups maybe having to step in and step up to help people get through some hard times, which is usually what does happen in society when there's like economic turmoil going on especially on Main Street. So really interesting. And hey, and just remember, guys, like all of you guys who don't know astrology and just listening to what this means, it doesn't matter when I said Neptune trine series that you don't know what that means, because what the point is that what I'm describing in that energy, in that that caring energy, is you're going to feel something like that. That's what you really need to focus on. Don't get caught up in the astrology. Okay, and so also in July, 3 more planets join the retrograde parade, and they're all 3 outers, and they're not really, 2 of them are bodies, 1 of them is a planet, but they're all outer planets again, so they're all going to be retrograde for many months, which once again indicates to me that a lot of the situations we're in right now are going to take months to resolve, and these are all outer planets, so once again they're affecting all of us on a societal level. It's not You can't, just step out of a lot of these things. So the first one is on the 19th. Chiron goes retrograde for 4 or 5 months. And, when Chiron goes retrograde, it's really like, wow. It's like, I just feel like I got beat up somehow and I'm wounded and I'm hurt. And it's kind of like the lion who retreats and is licking the wounds. And while you're doing that, you get to see how you hurt yourself, really, is really learning, trying to see what the lesson is for you within that, so that, you can learn to break that cycle and break through some of that. So there's a lot to find out within ourselves while Chiron, and how we hurt ourselves, and especially with Chiron and Aries. Once again, I've been saying this now for a couple of years. It's all about being self-responsible for our own healing when Chiron is going through Aries. And then on the 21st, and I mentioned it briefly before, Eris will station retrograde for 5 months. And, it really does fit in with the chaos of the times. It really makes us feel like we're stepping back, that nothing is going right, that there's been major steps going back, and it can really bring up this very vengeful energy inside that, there's a lot of conflict within ourselves, and there's a lot, and that has to change, before, what's going on in society is just a reflection of what's going on inside individuals within society. So this is showing there's a lot of conflict and chaos within. And once again, this is, Eris is in Aries too. It's all about the individual, and that's being reflected out. So we're going to see 5 months of really reflecting on that, how, we all are creating a lot of the problem. Humans create their own problems. That's it. End of story. And that's what this is telling us. We've got to look at our own ideas and how those ideas create the problems that we have. And then we think there's some kind of natural order when they're not. There's something that we created ourselves. So it's something we really need to look at. We need to be more real is what, instead of getting angry and projecting that and being vengeful and looking for an enemy. This is a time when we can really take a look back at ourselves. And then on the 28th, Jupiter also goes retrograde in Aries. And I remember even last week I was talking about, when in the new moon, the Jupiter in Aries can really feed that really selfish, subjective way of your values and philosophies. Really, get us in a warrior position about that. So now I think, during the 4 months that Jupiter, 4.5 months that Jupiter is going to be retrograde, we're going to get to really look and see how, where these philosophies and values that we believe so strongly in have taken us, and what the results of that is, and look and see how that's affected society, and so this is going to be a lot of thinking about that kind of energy. And then eventually Jupiter is going to retrograde back into Pisces in the fall. I think right, gosh, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think it's the 29th of October, somewhere around there. And so there'll be an opportunity after a few months of reflection to maybe go, Jupiter's going back into its sign of rulership, and maybe can bring some more compassion and that kind of thing back in and kind of balance some of that Aries kind of energy. And then the last, not the last thing, another huge, I think actually this is something that is probably the biggest thing of the month, right? So you guys all remember, because I remember everybody was talking about it, the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at the solstice in December of 2020. And everybody, was watching it, how they got closer, and it was, the beginning of a new age and all that. So, on the 21st, Jupiter, which is stationing at that point, retrograde, getting close to being retrograde in a week, and is semi-square Saturn, which is already retrograde. So those two same planets are now about 45 degrees apart, is what that means. So, that means they have gone into the crescent phase of their cycle with one another. So those new ideas that were planted during that time are now in a very, what is critical time for their growth. I like to use the example of a seed. If your idea is a seed, then the crescent time is when you have a seedling. And you know how seedlings will pop up right away, and then they don't seem to do anything for a while. They just kind of sit there, and you're like, what's going on? This is a little frustrating. I thought I'd, have this nice plant growing. And what's going on actually is there's a lot of growth going on underneath in the roots. And it's trying to build a stable foundation, but from a more conscious perspective, it doesn't look like much is happening. So that's what can be frustrating. It looks like maybe a lot of those grandiose ideas, everyone was so excited. Remember how you guys all felt about that? I remember so many people talking to me about how excited they were. It was the beginning of the new age. And now all of a sudden, we're in that crescent phase. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of stuff that has to be dealt with, and so part of like I said, it's building a foundation underneath first. That's the Saturn part. And the Jupiter semi-square Saturn, can make it is showing that we actually as individuals are still making adjustments before those ideas that we have can really have a greater effect on society. So we haven't really sunk our roots in completely yet. We're trying, so there's that frustration that's going on, and what it is we still need to root out old models and behaviors that are within our own selves that are blocking those ideas. We have to be more real, Saturn, with ourselves first. The source of our frustration in the process is actually coming from us. So this is, a time where we really need to be true to ourselves. And we have to realize there's going to be in the physical world a lot of ups and downs in relation to what we were trying to hatch back then. And it's a matter of disciplining ourselves right now. We are out of balance. The semi-square is out of balance. And in order to find the balance, it needs to first discipline itself more. It has to be more sure of what it wants fundamentally and be willing to want, give up some things that, it may be stuck to. So, definitely to another indicator of financial distress. And these are the two societal planets, Jupiter and Saturn, in a tough aspect with one another. So it's also indicating, watch your finances now, be careful about it, that decisions you make now are going to have long-term effects, because it's the root, once again, that's being grown right now. So it's a time to be cautious, a time to be patient, and a time to let things in your projects and stuff grow in at the natural pace. And yes, it's going to be frustrating to watch it slow down like that before you can really do much more, but it is a time of rooting out that stuff, because it is stuff from the individual that's still holding back, and we all are individuals that make up the society. So, and then the last thing this month is July 31st. This is kind of really exciting in relation to all this stuff we're talking about. Uranus is going to conjunct the North Node in Taurus, and this can be an either or mixed aspect, but this is about looking for new experiences with others that are different than normal, and doing that with a really lively and positive attitude, so that suddenly you may make some new connections that bring in new information and stimulate your life path. And once again, with it in Taurus, it's all about the resource situation, trying to find stability. North Node means that there's groups, there's partnerships, associations that can be made. However, for people who are resisting change, this is going to be a difficult aspect. This is going to be very upsetting. There could be issues with our family that come up, or we may, and it also can be like experiencing group tragedy kind of things together, which even, just the economy thing alone in Taurus is probably a lot of what that is. So if you're resisting change, this can be a tough aspect to deal with. And it really is, once again, saying we need to get beyond tradition, really, in order to keep growing. So then we go into this week, July 4th through 10th. And one of the big things this month is actually this week, too, and it's today on the 4th, when Mars changes signs and goes into Taurus. It goes from a sign of great strength, Aries, to Taurus. And what I consider, in over 30 plus years of observing astrology, as the toughest sign for Mars to be in, and always it seems to line up with economic type hardships, where the actions that we take normally to feel and have what we want and even more, and that's usually, I'm going to include disposable income in this, and that the things we normally do to get those things aren't working, or that you've run into a wall. Like, so on an individual level, it literally could be like the extremity of like losing a job or your source of income. And I think on a bigger level, it is totally blending in with this economic downturn again. It's all about like, oh, now I have to be frugal. I no longer can, it's the things I want are either not available, or I don't have the ability to get what they are. So yeah, it's traditionally, when Mars is in Taurus, it's in detriment, and it's because it can't act like it normally can, and that's an individualistic planet too. It's all about our actions, our motivations and stuff. So we have to purposely slow down, really. We have to, once again, this is telling us, be patient, slow down. You might have to give up some of your creature comforts. You might even have to sell off some of your possessions in order to get by still, and the emotional attachment to them is actually the biggest hurdle to get over. We form attachments, with our stuff, basically, with anything we really think about, we form attachments. But it's interesting, not only is Mars changing sign Monday today, but Mercury is too, and Mercury is going into Cancer. So it's also going from a sign it rules, Gemini, a sign it's very comfortable in, to a sign, Cancer, that it has no dignity in. It's what we call peregrine, and it means that it literally has to consider emotions before it decides things. Mercury's all about our mind, it's all about decision making, it's all about communications and all that. And it doesn't like the messiness of emotions in that. It likes cold, cool logic when it's doing, when it's processing information, when it's communicating, when it's learning, when it's teaching. And so when it goes into Cancer, it's forced to consider the emotional content of situations, which once again slows things down. It slows the process down. So it's very interesting to me. These are two of our personal planets. There's a lot for us to learn, that these two planets are going into signs where they're not very comfortable, and yet that they're going to be exactly sextile one another today too, at 0 degrees. So it's giving us an opportunity to really take a step back and reflect, and in our thinking realize how at times we are, not allowing the emotional content to come through enough, and maybe being a little too cool at times about the way we're acting and communicating, and with our actions that we're, sometimes just going too fast, and like, we're not, realizing how those actions are affecting things around us. So this gives us an opportunity to really like reassess, the way we think and communicate and collect information, and the way we actually do things, and what motivates us. And the fact that it's happening right when many people are, really being hurt economically is showing that, there's new ways possibly to get resources if we can do that, if we can change the way we think and act, and allow other things in. So I think it's a really big lesson here that, that we can do things differently, and maybe new opportunities will come up. And my suggestion in this situation, is that like, if we change our attitudes about, resources and loved ones, and our activities, and and our focus and things like that, then opportunities may come to us that may help us in situations where we're feeling stressful. And my suggestion is to take any opportunities that come, especially with resource and how you're getting resource, because once again, it's Cancer and Taurus. It's two signs that are all about, resource. So it's really, a time where I would say take those opportunities. Now, interestingly enough, too, Venus is sextile Chiron on Tuesday, which shows that just like the opened end of the T-square that I was talking about on the monthly with Ceres and Pluto and Eris, that relationships and forming relationships is with groups and other individuals is a way that we may get some of these needs that all of a sudden are being stressed. Two asteroids also make a little movement this week. Pallas Athene goes into Gemini, and so that's really interesting, man, because Pallas is all about mental energy and intellectual energy anyway, and so here she goes into a sign that's all about that too. And so really it's about focusing on gaining knowledge through words and language, really, more than anything. That's really, in a basic nutshell, what that is. And we can use the words also, like for positive affirmation. It's like about, like even poetry and storytelling and myths and things like that can have a lot of like information for us that's knowledge for us. And Pallas also can almost like be like a political orator, and it's just like gaining wisdom through new knowledge that we get. Now, Vesta actually goes retrograde this week too, so Vesta is also going to be the asteroid Vesta is also going to be another body that's retrograde for a while, and that's all about like reassessing the groups that we're in and what's going on with them, and like really like over the next couple months or so, really deciding, whether that's something we would still want to be part of. Another big thing happening this week, the second big thing of three, is Mercury is squaring Jupiter and the Sun is squaring Chiron on the same day, on Friday. And I really think this is going to be about how our big ideas hurt us, how when we don't look at the details, how when we push things and we don't like have a holistic way of what the results of those things may be, how that can boomerang back and hurt us and knock us off balance and get us in like some odd, painful positions. So it's all about like, needing to take care of details if you really want to get the results that you want, because otherwise you're just going to hurt yourself ultimately. They're going to come back and trip you up. And Mercury and Jupiter gives a very broad vision, but it really doesn't like to be to deal a lot of times with like dealing with like, well, what's that gonna take, and so like it can be a little bit flippant about that and attitude, and so like this means that it could really hurt us ourselves, and really end up throwing us off for a while. And then on Sunday the sun is sextile Uranus. That's the last thing of the week, and that is just like express yourself, be yourself, find out who you really are, break out of the box, tap into like creative energy. It is good too for connecting with others, but it's like really like just being truly who you are, putting on your like wildest clothes or whatever, or really expressing yourself artistically or with your ideas, with your mind, all that kind of stuff. So it's like it's that old R&B song, express yourself, that's whatever you do it good, right? So that's that's the job for next weekend, is to be yourself, because what that will do is it'll bring opportunities to you. It will bring the right people and ideas and experiences to you, and it's a desire to have new experiences, to add some pizzazz to your life, so to speak. So really a good opportunity to do that next week. Okay, not too bad. I got in at about a half hour here on both the monthly and the weekly, and like I said, I really think with the monthly that Jupiter semi-square Saturn is huge in that cycle. What were you thinking back then during that conjunction? And like, the real world is like, really testing it probably. It's like a hot wind blowing across those seedlings, and you got to sink those roots down. And it is about like really finding the balance in yourself first, because that's what's throwing things off still right now. So like, you need some protection, and you need some help, and that help is out there too. And that's something that's one of the lessons of that Uranus North Node and the Neptune with the Ceres and some of this other energy that if we can adjust our ways of thinking and doing things, that new opportunities will be there. And to look through relationships is like partnerships with groups as being a place where you can get and give support to one another. So a very interesting month. And then this week, like I said, don't allow those big ideas to trip you up. And also like, looking at new ways of thinking and doing things can create a lot of resource opportunity that I would recommend following if that comes up. And like next weekend, great weekend to, be your own art piece, because that's what it's all about. Yep. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is available every week on YouTube. If you have a YouTube account, become a follower and turn on your notifications. It's on, and it's a free service. So what can you guys do to pay me back? You can give me a donation if you want, but the best thing you can do is to pass it on to somebody else as soon as you're done listening that you think might be interested in it, and help me spread the word. And it's available on all kinds of podcasts too. There's no reason to look at my face or a chart. And remember, there's no reason to even listen to the astrology behind it. It's the meaning that's important. That's what you want to focus on, especially if you don't know the astrology. I like to mention the astrology because I know there's a lot of people interested in astrology, and they learn something each week about astrology from it. But if you do want to give a donation, it's Matthew with 2 T's Lawton, Lauten, at Matthew-Lawton on Venmo. I'm also on Zelle and PayPal. No amount is too small. And the other best way that you guys can support me is I'm a professional astrologer. I've been giving readings for over 20 years. And if you need a reading, And I highly recommend you get your natal chart done first, because it really is, if you don't know the energies consciously that are in your life, then you're kind of hypnotized by them, you know? You're a little bit of a zombie to them. So it's good to be self-aware. And then, like, I highly recommend, too, as a birthday gift to yourself around your birthday every year, get a predictive reading for the year. It's a weather report, just like I give for the week. And once again, if you don't know, you might have some serious problems in a given year, and you may like my life is fine. It's like you will find out, why that's going on, when it's going to end, what's going to happen next. It'll help give you, some peace of mind and some answers to the way you can deal with the things that are going on in your life. So highly recommend that too. And they both can be done together too. And then relationship charts, if you have a new relationship or an existing relationship going through a lot of changes or stress or whatever, relationship charts, children's charts, if you want to look at your kids' first 20 years and major events, that's a big thing. Relocation, a lot of people asking about astrocartography services, where your planets lines fall on the planet. Where's the best place for you to do? Aligning those things. Specific questions too, like, just of, or can be done too. And then elections, if you're looking for the best time to launch a business, a wedding, any kind of event, you can hone in on the best time for you. And then, simple horary too, if you have a burning question that's really emotionally charged and you can't seem to make a decision on, sometimes we can get an answer to a chart. Fixed star readings for people who have done like a lot of the other stuff already, like, the natal, and they know that stuff, and, or maybe looking for a deeper soul purpose as to what their life is about. All that kind of stuff. Lectures too, and work events too. So if you have an event you'd like an astrologer at, or you'd like to have some lecture classes, just let me know. Available for that. I do have classes too available, some beginning classes for individuals. There's 5 of them right now. They're available on Dropbox. Once again, best way to get me for any of this stuff, through the comment sections on YouTube, if you or any of those ways that I'm out there, I see the comments. Or best way is really my email, mattthue823 @gmail.com. mattthue823 @gmail.com is really the best way to get me. All right. Until next week, and then next week we have the full moon, right? The full moon coming up in Capricorn. I think it's at 23 degrees. So Capricorn people, get ready for that. And we'll talk about that next week. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel, signing off until next week.